before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to all my subscribers. You guys have pushed me over 500 subscribers. I am currently trying to get to 1,000. Once I hit 1,000, someone will be walking away with a baby bottle of B. So the only rules are you have to subscribe and you have to enter baby B in the comment section of any of my videos. So this is letter A. It was dumped on 5/12/22. So if that is a date that is close to your heart, go ahead and enter the win and walk away with a baby bottle of B. Thanks for tuning in to Bourbon Drop. I'm your host Myron. Today we've got something just a touch different. Straight out of Baltimore, we've got Old Line Spirits Single Malt Double Oak.
Bottle drop, bottle drop.
I'm always looking for something different. When I go into the store, I want to see if there's some bourbon that I've never had before, or if there's some whiskey that I might be kind of partial to. So I talked to a lot of the store owners. I talked to one store owner. He told me that he thought this was pretty good. I told him that, hey, if you have a few bottles, go ahead and give me one. I'll give it a try. Of course, he wasn't going to give it to me. I had to purchase it, but that's a different story. So I got this thing home, got it in a glass. I didn't know what to think of it. It was really quite different. I mean, it's straight out of Baltimore. It was started by two former pilots out of the Navy. They were a little bored in their normal life, so they decided to go ahead and get a distillery started. Both of them had distillery in their hearts. So that is one thing that they wanted to travel and chase. And they actually spent some time in California learning the trade of distilling. So let's get into the nose. With it being second barreled in that cognac cask and using fresh American oak for the first barreling, it does not come off like a single malt. It comes off like a bourbon. I get the pepper, I get the spice, I get beautiful fruit notes. Normally when it comes to a single malt, an Irish whiskey, a scotch, I get a lot of raisin, but I am not getting that here. That cognac has influenced the distillate in this bottle so much that it's giving off these like beautiful grape notes, these fruit notes. Yeah, I mean, it comes off more like a bourbon. It does not come off like a single malt. Now, it does have 87% premium two-row malt and 13% deep roast malt. It was bottled in 2022. The first barreling was white American oak. It was barreled in a 30-gallon barrel for 4.1 years. Then from there, it was put into a French oak cognac barrel, a 69-gallon cognac barrel, for 1.3 years. Now, the wild thing is when you look on the back of the bottle, I love how they tell you everything about it. They tell you that it was distilled in Ohio, it was brought to Maryland. It does say that it was aged and barreled here in Baltimore. And they kept it in the original barrel for 4.1 years, and they kept it in the cognac barrel for 1.3 years. So you're talking almost 5.5 years. Almost 5.5 years in a barrel, and I believe the reason why they kept it in that 30-gallon barrel is because that may speed up the aging process. I am not 100% sure about that. Let's get into the palate. A lot of the fruits come forward, they're here and they're gone. And then it turns almost into like a light grape jam, and then a honey, and then it disappears. A lot of the pepper is left behind. I do get some of those grassy notes, and I do get some of that corn husk note in it. Now, the corn husk note is not always bad, and I said that before. It does lend some depth to the bourbon. I really enjoy that corn husk note in the Frey Ranch. I don't like it as much in the Whistle Pig, and I do not like it at all in the Still Austin. But in this bourbon, I'm sorry, I keep saying bourbon. In this American whiskey, this single malt whiskey, it does lend some complexity. Now, what I will say is when I first got it home, I didn't know what to think of it because some of those notes that came in and out so fast had me wondering if I liked it. And the nose was so beautiful, the nose like a bourbon, that I liked the nose, but the palate I was kind of iffy on. And I kept going back to it and kept going back to it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put it on the channel. I try to give you guys the most honest review possible, but I do not want to sit up here and dog out bottles, because sometimes you get a bad bottle, and sometimes, you know, we as whiskey tubers can have a lot of influence over what you guys purchase. But I wanted to give this thing another try because I knew that it was something that I liked about it, especially the nose, and it was a few things in the palate with those fruit notes that I liked, but I wasn't sure. So what I did was I drink all of my bourbons neat, but there are only 2 whiskeys that I've had so far that I need to chill. Not with ice. I used to give guys a hard time, but with whiskey stones. Let me put them in a glass and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Shout out to my sister-in-law, Michelle, for getting me whiskey stones for Christmas. Everyone knows that I'm in whiskey one way or another, so they tend to give me anything and everything whiskey. I wanted to keep it in the freezer as long as possible, but what I found was chilling the whiskey seemed to bring more fruit notes out of it, and it made it way more enjoyable, man. Let's like that sound right there. Let's get it, you know, a little chilled and get it on the palate. Even in the nose, now that it's chilled down in the nose, it's like this sweet vanilla that comes out, almost like a very thick vanilla. Like when I smell it, I think of almost like a vanilla paste, like almost like what's in between Oreo cookies. Let's get into the palate. It changes the whole flavor. It changes the whole flavor. A lot of those corn husk grass notes, they calm down, and that roasted malt gave this almost like a peated flavor, but not bad. It gave it almost like this, like just a bit of a peated flavor. It tones down once you chill it a little bit, and it actually makes those peated notes turn more into like a barrel char smoke note. It makes it very enjoyable. Let's go back into the palate one more time. Yeah, that ice ball, well, I won't call it an ice ball. I'll call it a spherical whiskey stone. It seems to knock a lot of those edges off and bring more of those fruit notes forward. It thickens the whiskey up. It turns it into more of like a jam note. Just everything about this bottle being chilled just puts it on a whole different level. I was not a big fan, but I was a fan of this bottle. Once I chilled it, now I am a big fan of this bottle. Those roasted, malted barley notes, they just shine through, man. It comes across like a coffee, almost like coffee beans, like just ground coffee beans. It comes across like spent ground coffee beans, and those fruit notes, they come to the forefront. Some of that grassiness and that corn husk is very toned down. I am really enjoying this, and if you talk to anyone that knows me, back early on in my bourbon journey, I gave guys a hard time for drinking anything with ice or anything mixed. I was neat or nothing. Shout out to my neat heads out there, man, because I was neat or nothing. I am still pretty much neat or nothing, but there are a few whiskeys that I do not mind chilled down. This Glenmorangie 14 right here, I felt the same way about this one. I got this one home. It was like an orange jam, orange marmalade, but it was so quick and so light on the palate. I threw a couple of cubed whiskey stones in there, and it just brought those marmalade notes just out even further. It thickened it up. It just made it more viscous in the mouth, and it really brought it alive. So I decided to do the same thing with the old line, and I'm telling you what, I do not regret it. Let's get into the breakdown because I feel like I've read it enough. Is this worth the chase? Well, I don't know much about Old Line. The few things that I do know about them, I found online, and they were still kind of vague, you know, because it showed the owner, well, one of the owners, you know, stirring some mash, but the back of the bottle says Ohio. So it says distilled in Ohio, but it does say aged and barreled in Baltimore. So I wasn't sure, and I know they make other spirits. They make rum. They make some other things. So, and they also offer a cask strength, and they also offer a lower strength version than this. So I was kind of confused on what they do as far as the distillation process. But we don't know much about Old Line. So, you know, it's not really chased right now. I will tell you this, after chilling this thing down and having it, I would chase it. The next question though, is it worth over retail? No. It is 75 bucks. Yes, I did say 75 bucks. It is 75 bucks. That is a lot. And we all know in the bourbon community that you can get a lot more for 75 bucks. Even in the whiskey community, this Glenmorangie is 14 years old. It is a Highland single malt scotch, and this thing is only 55 bucks. I don't want to crap on this bottle because this is a very delicious bottle, but I pretty much get the same result out of both of them. Now look, scotch drinkers, do not come for me, please. I am not a big scotch drinker. I am not going to say that I know everything about scotch and whiskey, okay? But I am pretty much experiencing the same result. One was 55, one was 75. What can I say? Would I give it to a new bourbon drinker? This thing does come in at 100 proof, which I like. That was one of the main reasons why I picked it up. Sometimes when I dibble and dabble into the Scotch world, the Irish whiskey world, that lower proof just doesn't hit me in the way that I like it to. So when I saw this thing being 100 proof, I snatched it up. And the fact that they age it in the first barrel for 4.1 years in new charred American oak barrels gives it that bourbon note. When you nose it, that bourbon note on the palate. I mean, it does offer a lot to this as far as being barreled in a virgin American oak barrel versus being aged in a used barrel. So those are some things that I like about it. Will I give it to a new bourbon drinker? I don't see a problem giving this to a new bourbon drinker at 100 proof. It does not come across super spicy, but it would have to be a new bourbon drinker that does not mind a little bit of a smoky note in their bourbon or a little bit of a grassy note in their bourbon. Now, this thing right here, like I said, once chilled down, all of those fruit notes come to the forefront. So I would recommend chilling it first, whether you're using whiskey stones or whether you're using ice. I don't think it would really matter. Even for a new bourbon drinker, maybe ice, because as the ice melts, it will water it down and maybe that will calm it some. Will I keep a bottle on the bar? Now that I've had this thing chilled, I think that I am always going to keep a bottle of this on the bar because this is something to me that would get a bourbon drinker into whiskey. Because once you chill it down, if that bourbon drinker doesn't like anything chill, at least get him to try it. If he or she does not want to try it, then so be it. But at least get them to try it at a more chilled temperature because I think that will liven up some of those fruit notes and bring them to the forefront, and I think they will enjoy it. With that being said, let the whiskey flow, never run out unless you're headed to a drop. Till next time.